You're muted. Okay, they weren't on them. I think you're still muted. Get that out of your way.
Thanks. I do.
Yep, 6 o'clock. Yep. Time to start.
Mr. Schwartz.
Good.
How do I?
Who what? I'll get there. I promise. We'll go hang out and have
Hey,
some
Mr. Schwartz,
fake beer.
we need to start our hearing.
You golf? You golf?
Once.
Excellent.
Beer hole.
No more recess?
Don't we at least need to do a roll call, or are we waiting for that too?
That's not how Vicky has it set up.
Okay.
Buy it.
Are we on?
Which one?
Okay.
I think it's just a public hearing.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock on this beautiful Monday afternoon. It is June 16th, and we are starting our meeting off with a public hearing, and then our regular meeting will follow thereafter. So we're going to kick it off with Chief Business Officer Britt Ridgway, who's going to present an updated summary of the 2025-2026 proposed school district budget, and then this proposed budget will be considered for official board vote during the regular part of our board meeting. And then following this presentation, there is also time as required for public comment regarding the 2025-2026 district budget. So we'll start off, and then after that, we will do roll call and Pledge of Allegiance and kick off and do some special recognitions. But so for the first half hour, this is, for those that are not aware, this is what we do every year throughout the state of Colorado. Is in June, we are required to vote on our budget. And we have a timeline. So Mr. Ridgway.
You're welcome. I'm waiting for the presentation to load up here. If I speak for half an hour, I guess what that means is I'll be trimming it back from my normal monthly presentations, right?
Good luck, Mr. Ridgway.
Yes, you're welcome. Something to look forward to, though. This is really weird that this is taking this long to open up, but I think I'll, yeah.
Well, in the meantime, welcome my fellow board members and our cabinet and folks that are sitting and joining us both in person and live. And it's a nice summer, kickoff to the summer. And this is our last board meeting for the 2025 or 2024-2025 school year. So, and then we will take a break in July and jump back in feet first come August. Are we still waiting? Okay.
It's going really, really slow.
And while some folks get to travel and work in their gardens, our Big Red staff is diligently here in the building all day long, working to make sure everything's ready for our next school year.
about this.
Mr. Norris, you got a joke?
Not appropriate one.
Pardon me? So we probably just need to have them uploaded or up and ready.
Yeah, it ran a Windows update in the background. It's like an hour ago, so that's the issue, but it's almost there.
Yeah, I tried pulling mine up also, and it's not happening.
Mine pulled up.
I gotta go through DISA.
This wireless,
This is my government computer.
two separate. Yeah, I tried it earlier and it works, so it has to update and slow it down.
We could have, if we're worried about that in the future, have PDFs open, ready to go, so that they're not.
Yep.
Patty, we have a lot to sign. We have to wait on votes. Yeah, there are lots of tabs for us to sign. We're gonna be here late singing.
Where's Chris Mack? Where's Chris Mack? I said,
What
where's
are we-
Chris Mack?
What are we struggling to pull up?
Budget.
It just ran a Windows update, so.
There it goes.
Now it's just
It's
slow.
like mine popped up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Sir.
thank you. Sorry for that delay there.
you now have 24 minutes.
24 minutes? I don't get my 6 minutes back? Okay. As you mentioned, this is a normal annual process. In some ways, it's very significant. And in other ways, I hope this is somewhat anticlimactic, too, because we have been talking about this for 4 months now. And really, I'd imagine that any one of you could just give this presentation. Chris, you ready? Okay. But instead, I will do that for you. And being a hearing and a summary, since I'm not going to go through all 177 pages, I will hope that the executive summary provides some useful content for this presentation and conversation. I want to thank a lot the Financial Transparency Committee members for their work with me this year and for their advice in our last meeting last month. I asked them exactly, how do you want me to present this at the budget hearing? And so they kind of guided me in terms of what they thought would be a good recommendation, which is really consistent with this one-page summary that I've been showing you and staff for a while now to provide a takeaway of what the key things, the key variables are happening in the budget. So number one there, in terms about School Finance Act, School Finance Act is the vast majority of our revenue, and I have a couple of revenue slides that will go through on that. The key assumptions with that is that enrollment is flat across the operated schools. Really, it's also flat with Monument Academy as well. So there's no volume change on the revenue side, which by extension means there's really no volume change on the expense side as well. And so that kind of is the correlation I always want to try and establish. In terms of the rate side, the per pupil revenue rate is increasing by about 2.7%. You see I have the cross out there because the earlier assumptions were that it was going to be about 2.5%, and so we had a late change with the School Finance Act late in the session, which bumped it up to 2.7. Number two there, investment in capital projects to decrease by $500,000 annually. That's from a level of $3 million a year to $2.5 million a year. Just for some historical context, back when there was a statutory requirement for us to invest a certain percentage of PPR into capital projects, that number was 3% of general fund revenue. And since our general fund revenue is about $50 million, that means $1.5 million would have been that traditional requirement. And so we've been far exceeding that kind of since we came out of the COVID years. And so is it great to reduce it by $500,000? Depends on your perspective, I suppose, but it was great to be able to take that $500,000 and basically turn it back into compensation, which is where we get to point number 3, where the average across the district pay change is projected to be 3%. Normally, that would be something just slightly less than the PPR rate change of 2.7. So instead of a 2.6 or 2.5, 2.55 average pay change, it's going to be 3% this year. And that was a direct connection with that capital project reduction. And that was, again, based on guidance from the FTC that wanted to make sure that we had an average across the district pay change that exceeded the national rate of inflation of 2.8%. So getting to something to 3.3% really allowed us to exceed that. Number 4, we had an expensive year in the health plan. We had really high utilization, and so that led to a pretty significant increase of 13.5% in that component of the budget. I'll show you some more on the real dollars of that here in a minute. Just maybe as a hint to the future, I've been talking about it with the staff collaboration committee, and I want to talk about it more and more. But really, coming up this fall, I want to convene the SCC and probably even get a subgroup of that to really delve into health insurance and what should we do as a district going forward. Should we move towards a self-funded model rather than the traditional model that we have? We've made some good changes by introducing the HSA and stuff, but there still, I think, is opportunity to even really dig down to really the foundation of how the program runs and say, do we want to do something completely different? At number 5 there, we executed about a 60% shift towards student-based budgeting. This was an important move for us to make sure that we were balancing efficiency and effectiveness across the district, across all schools in the district. There were times when we were skewing towards effectiveness for the sake of efficiency, and as the finance guy, that's something I get to say because it's financial numbers. It's hard to say that we're being overly effective from an educational perspective, but if one school is really benefiting at the detriment of other schools, that is something that we have to balance up over the long term. And so we did that, again, as a 60% shift to not break anything, but also make a significant step in that direction. Because as we do things like the Career Innovation Center, and we do these things in a situation where we're not experiencing volume growth in student count, then we know we have to be reallocating dollars. And so we have to make sure that there's efficiency in the system with that. And number 6, the key point of this year's budget is the Career Innovation Center, the CIC, is continuing to be funded out of Fund 44. And one of the things that you'll see that it seems like there may be some inconsistency, but really it is when you budget a certain fiscal year like 25-26, we have to anchor that to a particular scenario of the prior fiscal year, 24-25, that we're now completing. The anchor is to anchor the 25-26 budget to the 24-25 amended budget. And in the amended budget, we had all of the cost for the CIC in that budget, fully loaded in that budget. We know it'll carry over on into the next fiscal year. And when we do the amended budget for 25-26, it will reflect that activity. Right now, we are building this based to link to the 24-25 amended budget, which assumed all that cost happened in this current fiscal year. As I mentioned, understanding revenue is a key point, and I think I spent some time focusing on this last year because revenue is where we get a lot of confusion about understanding revenue, where it comes from, and kind of how it's classified, and how do we talk about it in terms in this particular graph. We're talking about where does the contributor of the revenue, where is this revenue coming from? And so this revenue, the inner pie is kind of the detailed pieces of revenue. So when you're looking at a lot of the financial reports, you'll see a lot of detail, of course. But it's taking those detailed pieces and really then just categorizing them in a larger piece to focus on what is coming from local taxes, what is coming from the state, federal, and other revenue. The revenue in this case is like user fees, participation fees for classes, for sports, et cetera. So the local taxes, if you look a little bit at the inner pie here, there are several components of local taxes, the biggest of which is the School Finance Act property tax levy. But we also have the mill levy override levy, and we have the bond levy. So those are the 3 different tax streams that the board sets the levy rates for every December and that are assessed to property owners coming into the new calendar year. And so when they make those payments, they often are seeing that kind of as just one number. Even on the property tax statement, it shows as two numbers. But I really want to demonstrate and emphasize that it's not even just two numbers. There are three pieces to it, and then what comes alongside the actual property tax revenue is what we call specific ownership tax. So there's a portion of the license plate fees and things like that that come alongside with the property tax collections and are remitted to the district. Now, taking that same revenue and kind of recasting it in this term, what I call the revenue type. So this inner pie has not changed at all, but it's really saying let's redefine this in a different way, because people often talk about the revenues in each of these two perspectives, not realizing that they may be shifting back and forth between the two perspectives, and therefore creating maybe some confusion. So in terms of this, the revenue type, the biggest piece of revenue that we have by type is the School Finance Act revenue. That piece of revenue has a significant local share and it has a significant state share to it. There's also a little bit of specific ownership tax that comes into the School Finance Act as well. Then there's a section that I call authority revenue. This is revenue that comes to us based on it's things like special education revenue, Title I, things like that come to us with prescribed rules about how we are eligible for it and how we will spend it. Then there's then they have the override levy and the bond levy separated out in this case because they are not part of the School Finance Act. They are additional revenue collections for the district that go above and beyond the School Finance Act, even though they are part of the local taxation that is received. The other revenue here has a lot to do with local grants. Interest income is part of that. Fees in lieu of land. Those are the pieces that we receive that are other revenue. And so these two charts, again, are not separated by fund, but they're really looking at the revenue in the pieces and how can we categorize them and talk about them. But we want to make sure that we know which perspective we're talking about and to not mix those back and forth. Because one of the local things that we've been having conversations here lately is about Buc-ee's, right? And so not to rip open that wound, if anyone has any particular feelings about it, I'm just talking about it from a very financial, philosophical approach, because someone may say, hey, that if Buc-ee's comes in, the school district revenue will increase. That's not true. They would pay money into the school district for sure. But what would happen and what you'd see here, and this is the good way to see it, is in the School Finance Act revenue, if they took this little slice of pie here and that became revenue from there, that would mean that the state share piece would just get smaller, because what stays consistent is the School Finance Act total revenue. So would they pay money into the school district? Yes. Would that district's revenue increase? No. Right? So again, a mixed message that you have to be careful that you understand what it is, what perspective we're talking about. Yes, sir.
Would that be true also to the 2024 significant increase in property taxes that most of our constituents experienced?
That's very true in that regard.
Right.
So, prior to that, this dark blue pie, which is the property tax of the School Finance Act, that would have been a smaller piece, and the green piece would have been larger. But what wouldn't have changed is the total size of that overall piece of pie. Only the pieces, only the components of it would change. In the executive summary here, I did have some detail that then focuses on the inner pie, because as much as I like to try and simplify things here with these first two charts, I also want to provide the reconciliation of all the detail behind that. So I have that here. This is a chart which takes a lot more time to discuss, so I'm going to skip this now. But the point of this particular chart is to demonstrate how much of the revenue that we get has strings attached to it, and how much of it really is available for what you might truly call local control decisioning. And there's far more money that has strings attached to it than people realize. Even if you think about things like the mill levy override money, there's strings attached to that. We have to spend that in certain ways, right? And we do, but it's not really available for whatever the Board of Education or the administration would like to apply that money towards. There are specific strings attached to that. So that's what this chart is designed to do. It does take some real sit down and almost one-on-one conversation to talk through that one. Yes.
That was actually one of my questions. is
Okay.
How much is earmarked or designated for specific categories that is not allowed to be used for anything, such as, our bonds is a prime example.
Exactly.
Bond money isn't, it's categorized as revenue, but it's passed through. It's used for paying off capital. So how much in special education, nutrition services, busing?
So of this, what this chart is saying is of the total district, $91 million that comes in. Again, this is all funds, all sources of revenue. If we scroll to the right, and by the time we have things that need to be kind of identified for their intended purpose, we come down to $58 million of that total pie that really has, if you will, no strings attached to it. That's maybe not the best way to describe it, but I am trying to do that with some effect to say there's a lot of money that has rules to it that we have to follow, whether it's how many people we have, what they're being paid, what is the supplies and services, et cetera, that are the conditions for receiving that money.
But the PPOR number is a derivation of which of these figures?
It is in these figures, and it's right here as $69 million of School Finance Act funding. Now, the reason that's showing as $69 million is because that it does include Monument Academy's piece of the pie, right? And so while as the operated schools, we will, you know, you see that here's the reduction, the takeaway from Monument Academy of that $69 million, $12 million gets allocated to that. So there's really only, quote unquote, only $57 million of that for the operated schools. Then we have to decide what are we doing with things like transportation, and what are we doing with things with insurance, and what are we doing with capital, right? We started that conversation in point 2 about $2.5 million of capital. That comes off of that $57 million. So that $57 million gets whittled away even after you take the Monument Academy piece out of that School Finance Act. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So one of the new graphs that I've put together that as I told the group today, I was really excited about, because I get excited about this stuff, was to take this chart that I had here about the revenue types and focusing on the School Finance Act. So this light blue section of the donut. And what I've done is take this outer donut on this chart of revenue types, put it into the inner pie, and then put expenses, then relating expenses to that. And so the point of this is to really emphasize, which again the FTC wanted to see us make a good presentation and emphasis of that, is how much of School Finance Act and MLO in this case. So I added the School Finance Act and the MLO up here in the upper right-hand corner. How much of that goes to staff? How much of that goes to compensation? And so 84% of that money goes to staff and compensation. And that's not all the staff that we have, by the way, but it's staff that is paid from that piece of revenue. And then there are pieces of it that go to supplies and services, pieces of it that go to the utilities, and then as we just were talking about, how much of that goes to Monument Academy for their piece of School Finance Act. Then there's the authority revenue, which again is the spends on that are prescribed. So that's $11 million of authority revenue, but it's spent as that's prescribed to us. And again, there's some staff in there. There are some supplies and services in there as well. You can see up here in this upper piece just before the 12 o'clock that I kind of split that override levy and have this dark blue is the operated schools portion of that, and there's this little sliver right here, which is Monument Academy's portion of mill levy override, which if I zoom in there really close is $685,000 of that $4 million piece of pie. Yes, sir.
The bond levy, the roughly $5.4 million or
Yes.
so, does that have an expiration date on it?
Yes, it does. And in fact, one of the questions that I've received from the public is talking about the bond redemptions that we have coming up in the budget. And so we actually are have seen in the 24-25 fiscal year the expiration of the 2001 series of refinancing bonds that were issued. And so if we look specifically at Fund 31, which isolates the activity for all the bond payments and the bond revenue levy revenue that comes in to pay that, it is going down from 24-25 into 25-26 by about $1.8 million, because that was the amount of our last principal and interest payment on that 2001 series of bonds. The next group of bonds then has its own maturation, which comes in 2029. So to answer your question, yes, that will expire and dwindle down over the next 5 years.
That's something for us as a team to be cognizant of and understand. Is that significant?
It also means those are dollars that our taxpayers will not see, their taxes will go down that's owed to the school district starting next year, or is it last year?
Well, starting this coming year,
Yeah, yeah.
actually, we'll see some reduction
from- yeah.
in the bond levy.
And when we refinance the bonds, everybody's taxes went down also.
Right.
Right.
Through 2028.
Yep.
A small amount, but if you add it all up, it's almost $2 million.
So I'm at 626 already. And one of the things again, I received a couple of questions. I don't think we have any questions from in here, do we?
No signups for public
so
comment? Okay.
There were a couple of questions that came to me that I thought were worth throwing out there as some good observations that were made that I would want to try and answer. And the first one would be related to the mill levy override. And there was a question about the historical trend, which I show for all the individual funds here. And again, this mill levy override money was not broken out into its own fund before I came here in 2022. And so that's why there's no historical data from that. I started it in 22-23 and have carried it forward. But there was an astute observation wondering about this number for 23-24 and why/how did we collect $4.2 million of mill levy, what I put into mill levy override fund for that fiscal year. And the answer really is that you'll see this top line, 3.998. This was the actual collections of mill levy override tax. And we had $206,000 of other related revenue, which for that fiscal year was mill levy override match fund money, which was a bill that I wrote up at the legislature back in, I guess I don't remember now, 21, 22. And that was to provide mill levy override matching assistance for districts that had low assessed value per student ratios. Ordinarily, District 38 would not have qualified for that money, but we did qualify based on an alternative version of that calculation for 23-24. So that came in, and so we were able to receive that and utilize that. And so we even had that in the budget for that year, moving forward into this fiscal year of 24-25. You see we start at a $4 million number. When we actually did assess the levies back in December, that calculation came out to 399,998, to which through this point of the year, May 31st, we've received $2.7 million of that number. But then working forward towards 25-26, again, is at that $4 million fixed number. So again, I thought that was a good observation and worth a good question, opportunity here to answer a question like that. And just one more, if I could, is Fund 44, which is where we have received and accumulated our fee in lieu of land money. That's also where we are paying for the projects of the CIC, Career Innovation Campus, our center. And this is why I mentioned earlier about needing to anchor the 25-26 budget to a prior fiscal year scenario. And in this prior fiscal year scenario, in the 24-25 amended budget, we had $7 million worth of fund balance transfer that we freed up from Senate Bill 2417 that will come from the general fund. And that was going to combine with accumulated already received funds of $2.2 million and fund the CIC and the HSEA projects and et cetera that we're doing out of this fund. And so the 25-26 scenario is kind of going back to the historical pattern of Fund 44 where we receive a few dollars in the year and we spend maybe a few dollars in the year, or maybe we don't. But that's why there's this significant drop, especially in terms of expense, but also in terms of revenue, what's happening in Fund 44. This is a fund that really will only see activity in large numbers in very infrequent fiscal years. And so accumulating that money like we've had, making the fund transfer, handling these projects, will kind of expire that, and then we'll go back to kind of the previous of year to year, just accumulating some of the small fee in lieu of land amounts. So, like I said, those are just a couple of the questions that I was presented through email, and I will turn it back to you now if you would like any other questions.
Team, any other questions or comments? And to your point, Mr. Ridgway, we've been going through this often enough that it's a recap kind of.
Hopefully.
Is there do we have any comments from the community on our budget hearing? Was there none on there? Okay. We will be voting on this proposed budget and at our where's our proposed budget? Yep, E1 will be our vote for this. So if anything comes up and you come up to that comes to mind, we can have that in discussion during that vote as well. So with that, thank you, Mr. Ridgway.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And you answered all my questions, and actually you asked a question I had, so appreciate it. We're all good? We're all good. Okay, thank you, sir. Now for our next part of our meeting, we will now do the call to order and the roll call. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown? Here. Mr. Norris?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Dr. Shank?
Here.
Ms. Upchurch?
Here. Can I request that we all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Norris, would you lead us?
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Ms. Upchurch, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Nope. Okay. Well, seeing none, Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And next, I'd like to actually invite two guests we have tonight. I'd like to invite Mr. Bauman and Mr. Strum to the podium to introduce Ruby. And I'm assuming that you guys will speak briefly about Ruby and the Stars of Tomorrow. And we're looking forward to, where's Ruby? There you are.
She's here. But we'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to just take a few minutes of your time. I know you're busy people. I've been in your seats, so I know what that's like. But Rich and I are both members of Rich is here. Rich and I are both members of the Monument Hill Kiwanis Club, and we sponsor the Stars of Tomorrow Talent Contest. Rich is the organizer of that whole Stars of Tomorrow talent show, the initiator. Why don't you say just a few words about the talent show?
Well, this was an idea that was birthed 4 years ago because in talking to the principals and the performing arts teachers, there was a kind of something that was missing, and that was recognition of our performing arts students. The athletes and the academics get recognized to a higher degree, we thought, than the performing arts. So we embarked on this talent show called Stars of Tomorrow to showcase the performing arts for the kids in the district.
Yeah, so we've had 3 shows, and they've been very successful, but we wanted to demonstrate for you some of the talent that we have that exists in District 38. The talent show is just for District 38 students. So I'd like to introduce Ruby Taylor. Ruby is a talented star. She will be a senior at Palmer Ridge next year. But she was also one of our winners from last year at the high school level. And she's going to just show you a little bit of what Stars of Tomorrow talent is all about. So Ruby, take it away.
But hello, my name is Ruby Taylor. Like you mentioned, I will be a senior. I thank you all for this opportunity to sing here today. The Stars of Tomorrow talent show is a great opportunity for just performing arts students, just like they said. I'm kind of a broken record here, but I don't know where I'd be without music and our wonderful music program. I've been doing music since I was in elementary school. Mrs. Eversole, Miss Smith, Miss Dunphy, all of those people were such a big part, and I want to embark on music performance when I go to college. A background for this song, it's about a girl who moves to Broadway, and she wants to become a star, and she lives in a very interesting apartment with very interesting neighbors. It's Broadway, so you can guess who her neighbors are gonna be. If you've ever dealt with downstairs neighbors or upstairs neighbors, I think you'll relate to this song. If I could start from the beginning, that'd be good. Just moved into 14 keys, so cozy, calm, peaceful. Heaven for a mouse like me, with quiet finally full. Pets are banned, parties too, and no solicitation. Window seats, garden view, a perfect
Thanks, Ruby. And that's just a sample of what you can hear at our talent show. Miss Shank, you were there, and Miss Wetstein, you were there this past year. We have elementary, middle, and high school competitions. And so we invite you to come next March. And hopefully we'll be back. Thanks again, Ruby. Very talented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. I also want to do a shout out. Kiwanis is a huge supporter and partnership with D38, and there's so much that you do for our community and for our students and our kids. And what I love about this is it really does emphasize the importance of focusing on why we do what we do, and that is for our kids. So I want to say thank you. And not only that, but Mr. Bauman has also been involved with some other our arts panel at the district, and we did some award ceremony here, and I just really appreciate, and thank you, Ruby, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. So thank you, Mr. Bauman, and as I don't think it goes, I think everybody in here knows, but just in case, Mr. Bauman has spent many years in this very building as our past superintendent as well. So thank you, Mr. Strom and Mr. Bauman as well. Thank you both. Thank you. Okay, that was amazing. Was that not amazing? So please, everybody, go to the Stars of Tomorrow next year. Okay, next up, we'd like to elevate a D38 community recognition. We have our Tri-Lakes Rotary Club, and I'd like to actually invite Ms. Matizik to the podium to introduce this special recognition.
All right. Well, thank you so much, President Upchurch. I'm excited to be a part of some extra recognitions tonight, but I don't know how I follow up Ruby. That was truly amazing. Great way to start the meeting. So for our first Elevate 38 recognition tonight, though, we are going to recognize a community organization that has demonstrated continued support of our students and staff in Lewis Palmer School District 38. The Tri-Lakes Dynamic Rotary Club has recognized and encouraged our students and staff with a few different programs. And tonight it is our honor to show appreciation to them. So before I share a few added details about all that they've done for our students and staff, I would like to welcome to the podium a couple of their members that we have with us tonight, and that is Christy Smith and Owen Skolsky. So the Rotary Champions Program is one program that they have that facilitates awards and scholarships for outstanding scholar athletes from high schools across the Pikes Peak region. Every year they honor about 150 student athletes in the area and present scholarships to them. Since the program started in 1985, they have presented more than $350,000 in scholarships, and some of those have been to students in D38. That's worth a round of applause. And in addition to their Champions program, the Tri-Lakes Rotary Club sponsors the Rotary Youth Leadership Academy for 9th graders, 10th graders, and 11th grade students. And the event teaches the importance of positivity, confidence, and also leadership skills, and provides students with tools to empower them to become our leaders in our community for tomorrow. And through scholarships through the Rotary Club, as well as local businesses, our students can attend the Leadership Academy at no cost. So tonight we say thank you to the Tri-Lakes Dynamic Rotary Club and to Christy and to Owen, who's part of that club, both of them. And we sincerely appreciate everything that they do to support and elevate students in D38. So tonight we will present them with a plaque. We will say thank you. And we will capture a few photos with our board. I think we can fit the whole board in there tonight if you'd like to do that. And also Superintendent Wetstein.
Amy, real quick, do we want to do the photos separate, or do you want to do it when we have our students and our coach come up also?
We can do them separately, and if
Okay,
we can
perfect.
do one at the end that includes everyone as well.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, guys, we gotta do 2 rows to fit everybody in, so we'll have our Rotary friends step forward here. And then let's do, these are you are if you're tall. Let's do, okay, scoot over, let's put, Commissioner, okay. Perfect. You can move over a little bit, Mr. Brown, kind of in the middle. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Make sure you can see me. If you can't see me, okay. Yes. We're going to give our Rotary friends a chance to share a few words as well.
Hey, I'd just like to clarify a couple things. So Tri-Lakes Dynamic Rotary Club, we've been in existence only for 3.5 years. So if you do the math with Rotary Champions, you're probably asking yourself, well, how have they been in existence for 40 years? So Christy and I are representatives from our club across 10 other clubs as well that are part of what's called the Rotary Champions Board. And a couple other items I'd like to mention, especially for PR and LP. So this year, you know, these student athletes competed against 33 other schools in the Pikes Peak region. And on top of that, the actual folks that sit on the award board to actually determine who's going to win this are not even from this area. We try to keep it as unbiased as possible. So for these 2 schools to have done as well as they do, really is reflective of this area. The teachers, the students, and most importantly, our ADs, Lance and Nick Baker, really, we work very closely with them. And there's a reason why these 2 schools did so well, and it's really their proactive efforts in ensuring that their student athletes are recognized for their efforts. It comprises not just their athleticism, but their academics and their community involvement. So for these kids to have done as well as they did, it's tremendous, and it was awesome to be a representative of this district, to see these kids get these awards. And thank you very much. We really appreciate coming out here today.
Thank you. But wait, there's more. Ms. Matizik.
Absolutely. And Mr. Skolsky actually set the stage perfectly for our next 2 awards, because we are pleased to also have the opportunity to honor a staff member who was also recognized by the local Rotary Club and the Champions program, and that is Lance McCorkle, the athletic director at Palmer Ridge High School. He was selected as the Rotary Champions program athletic director of the year for 2025. And at this time, I'd like to bring Lance up to the podium. Share a few things about you first. So Lance was recognized for his dedication to student athletes and exemplifying a service above self attitude at Palmer Ridge High School. He excels with communication and leadership at his school and a deep-rooted commitment to our student athletes and their families. Lance's work genuinely impacts student athletes in their formative years, in the high school years. As a previous coach, he's earned countless wins, and he's mentored many students along the way. I think most of you, probably all of you actually in here, would agree that Lance does everything to elevate our student athletes. In fact, as we heard already earlier, he took time to encourage and nominate several of the athletes that we'll meet here shortly for recognition and to apply to be part of the Rotary Champions program. and you will meet some of these students in a little bit. So as Athletic Director of the Year of the Pikes Peak region, Lance did receive a monetary award, $500 from the Rotary Club for his athletic program. And in addition to being honored by the Rotary Club, School District 38 would also like to thank Lance for his dedication to our student athletes. So thank you, Lance. We have a plaque for you, and I will also give you the opportunity to share a few words before we snap some photos.
Lance, you're going to have to squat down a little bit.
I'll just talk loud. No, thank you. Mr. Skolsky, he and I start back in August with the rest of the ADs in the area. They feed us breakfast, and I eat a lot of breakfast, so it's always nice to go to those. I send a message out to all the coaches, who would you like to recommend? And from that point on, if they are a fall athlete, they have to have their stuff in right around December and everything finished. Winter athletes in February, and then the spring athletes in April. And every one of them wait until pretty much the last week to get everything done, and then they have to chase me down for a signature. But I have them in my office a few times to just remind them and to encourage them. And honestly, we've got great kids. We've got phenomenal parents who also encourage them. But our kids, if you see and hear all the accolades that they got, it's pretty impressive, everything that they've done at this point. And to think I've only gotten this far up until now, and the stuff they've done through high school is just it was amazing just to hear. And it's pretty cool to hear Palmer Ridge High School over and over again coming up to the stage to get their plaques or their awards, and then to win the two big ones was really, really cool. So yeah, and I'm not competitive at all. So, but thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, we'll go ahead and grab a photo with our board member, Superintendent Wettstein. And we also have with us the principal from Palmer Ridge High School, Dr. Adam Frank, and we'd like for him to join us in the photo as well.
That's right, you get in your steps. But wait, there's more. Miss Matizik.
There are more, because we're going to wrap up our Elevate 38 recognition by honoring several students, and they were the ones selected as the Rotary Champion Medallion winners. And these students were selected and honored for their academic and athletic achievements, as well as their community service accomplishments. So would the following students please come up and join me at the podium? First is Riley McCrory, and Riley was a lacrosse player at Lewis Palmer High School. And we may not have all of them here tonight because we all know how busy high school students are, school year and summertime. So in addition, though, and we're going to make sure we mention all of their names, even if they can't be here tonight, we have Hannah Wagner, and Hannah was a basketball player at Lewis Palmer High School. Also, Colson Kovacs, and he was a soccer player for Palmer Ridge High School. Also, Lauren Clausen, a volleyball player from Palmer Ridge High School. And Braylon Marr. Braylon is a gymnast at Palmer Ridge High School. And Hannah Lawrence. She is or was part of the spirit team at Palmer Ridge High School. I know the next two are here. Connick Goodwin, a boys tennis player at Palmer Ridge High School. And then finally, Amara Langstaff, a girls lacrosse player at Palmer Ridge High School. Now, as Rotary Champion Medallion winners, these student athletes were recognized by the Pikes Peak Rotary Club for their outstanding achievements and also embodying the spirit of champions based on their performance in the classroom and on fields of competition. They also were applauded for their service and dedication to others. We also want to make sure that we acknowledge tonight that Connick and Amara were also selected to receive the program's highest honor of Rotary Champions Scholar Athlete of the Year, which is awarded to the top male and female athlete. This is for the region. And each received a $10,000 scholarship, and we are so proud to share that both of these winners from the region are from D38 and also Palmer Ridge High School. So congratulations, yeah. So congratulations to our champion medallion winners. Everyone in D38 is incredibly proud of your accomplishments inside the classroom and in your favorite sport. So with that said, we would like to get a photo again with President Wettstein, and maybe because we have more student athletes, we'll get President Upchurch in the photo with this one.
Can we also get the coaches in since we have?
We can
or
get
the
coaches in,
ADs?
and we also have our principals here because
Yep.
in addition to Dr. Frank, we also have Jeffrey Zick, our incoming principal at Lewis Palmer High School. So we'll have them join in photos as well.
The bookends.
Maybe two.
And then everybody take, go this way like 2 or 3 inches. Okay?
Whenever it just want, whenever, and the worst timing usually.
All right, now stay right there. In our rotary training, would you like to join for one more photo? Exactly. Should be right there.
Good old dad. Thanks, Dad.
Right forward, just be step forward a little bit and one can go side view. On the other side, right by.
Okay. Congratulations again. At this time, we will move on to our next section, which is section C, sorry. Public comments, and Ms. Wood has informed me there are no public comments this evening, so we will skip over that. And we will move straight into our board member comments. And we will start at the end of the table, as is custom and tradition, with Mr. Brown.
Nothing for me, thank you.
No, sorry?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Schwartz.
No comments today, thanks.
Dr. Schenk.
I don't have anything written down, but it occurs to me, and one of the things I didn't realize growing up and being in a public school, and I realize so much now, is you've heard the phrase, it takes a village. I'd prefer it takes a community, and our community is really involved, and it's very heartwarming to me. You know, when I was in school, if somebody had said, well, it takes a community, I would have thought it's just the teachers, because the teachers were so important. But it really is much wider than that, and I didn't know, and being a board member has taught me just how much of a community it takes to raise good kids. I wanted to say, for anyone listening and whoever's left here, Stars of Tomorrow, that was fabulous. I loved it. I will go every year. I think there's a strong theme of community involvement in our community. It's hard, but it's also wonderful, and it's needed. That's it for me.
Mr. Norris.
I have nothing this month.
Okay. I actually don't have anything, but I wrote a few quick notes down. Last time we met was before graduation, and it made me reflect on graduation when it all culminates, when our students go pre-K through K through 12th grade, and when they go on and they're grown and flown and they spread their wings and they launch, that D38 really is a special school district. We are not too big and we're not too small, and there's so much to celebrate with our kids. From our athletes to our arts, our engineers, our students that are amazing with public speaking. There's just so much that happens in our buildings and outside of our buildings, and it reminds me tonight of, again, why we do what we do. We're in the business of people. And let's also not forget that the people that we may not have classrooms going on right now, but there's still lots going on behind the scenes. From our maintenance to human resources, everywhere in between, a lot of our educators are continuing their education during the summer. Our kids are continuing to do their activities and train, and some are just enjoying summertime. And I hope that everybody finds some time to get outside and enjoy the sunshine and the Colorado air. I just got back from Florida, and it made me also remember what a blessing it is to live here in Colorado. So that's all I wanted to say. Ms. Wetstein, Superintendent
All right,
update.
you queued me up perfectly, Miss Upchurch. Even though it's summertime, there are great things happening across Lewis Palmer School District. We'll see if it loads. Before I highlight some of the happenings over the summer thus far, though, as Ms. Upchurch mentioned, we launched the year with the biggest celebration of the year, which is graduation. So congratulations again to the graduating classes of 2025. Together we celebrated 258 graduates from Lewis Palmer High School and 277 from Palmer Ridge High School. The graduates tallied up many impressive accomplishments while in high school, and we can't wait to see what they do in life's next chapter. And shortly after one class finished their time at Lewis Palmer High School, the school hosted its annual Ranger Roundup to welcome more than 100 rising freshmen. Led by our Ranger Connection crew, students in the class of 2029 explored the campus, played icebreaker games, and got the inside scoop on all things LPHS. This new class is already showing tons of school spirit, and we can't wait to see the energy they bring to the school this fall. From June 2nd through June 6th, some of our 7th through 9th grade students embarked on an exciting tech adventure at our robotics coding camp. This initiative was led by Mark Groman, who is the advanced placement and PLTW computer science and cybersecurity teacher at Lewis Palmer and Palmer Ridge High Schools. The camp offered hands-on experience in Python programming and real-world robotics. What a fun way to keep students learning in the summer. And with our elementary age students, 6th graders from across the district had a chance to put their robotic skills to the test too. Bear Creek Elementary hosted the annual summer robotics camp that gave our younger learners the opportunity to explore Dash robots and to use the Lego We Do kits to bring their own creations to life. This event helps foster a love for engineering and design that students can expand on once they get to middle and high school. Summer band hit a high note at the end of May, bringing together our talented student musicians from Lewis Palmer Middle School, Lewis Palmer High School, and Palmer Ridge High School. The camp wrapped up with a harmonious concert demonstrating how much joy and passion these students have for music. We can't wait to hear them again during next school year. And summer sports camps are plentiful across the district. Our aspiring future Ranger and Bear athletes have the opportunity to learn from their mentors while enjoying physical activity and time with friends on the indoor court and outside on the fields too. Next, we'd like to share some kudos about our amazing staff. School District 38 has once again been recognized by the Colorado Department of Education, along with receiving the Accreditation with Distinction designation for this past school year. Kilmer Elementary was honored with a Governor's Distinguished Improvement Award for demonstrating exceptional growth over time. In addition, Palmer Ridge High School and Kilmer Elementary were celebrated with John Irwin Awards for exceeding expectations and academic achievement in the school performance framework. Thank you to our staff members at each of these schools for helping our students achieve academic excellence. And Monument Academy Middle School has been recognized as a Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase School. This prestigious honor reflects the dedication of their incredible educators and their commitment to building connections, fostering a positive school culture, and making a lasting impact in the lives of Monument Academy students. Congratulations to Monument Academy, we are proud of you. Finally, 3 D38 educators were recently named STEM Teacher Grant awardees by the Rocky Mountain chapter of the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association. Vicki Nally from Bear Creek Elementary School, Amy Robinson from Lewis Palmer Middle School, and Paula Perconti from Prairie Winds Elementary School. The association works to future STEM education across Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico by providing much needed funding for STEM-related programs. Congratulations to these amazing D38 teachers for their dedication to STEM education. And that concludes my update for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wetstein.
Lots of good things still going on and more to come. And don't forget, everybody, July 4th parade is coming up as well. Just remembered that. So we'll probably get to celebrate that in August. Okay, number 1 of our D section, Board of Education discussion items. We would like to invite, well, Ms. Welch is already on her way up.
No waste of time around here.
Welcome to the podium.
Thank you.
This is a presentation on strategic priority number 3.
Good evening. It's great to be here with you tonight. So I want to dive right into the presentation As I've done before, I have broken up the presentation into two parts, the hiring and separation update, and then this year, something a little different, the end of year evaluation update. This is the first time I will have presented the board with this type of end of year evaluation data. So a little bit of information, and it does align with the priority 3 action work that we have been focused on with the valuing our people priority. Another update that I want to explain is that we are going to look at this data from July 1 to end of June, much like our budget year data. So rather than what I have done in the past is focused on the hiring that we're doing in the spring and summer leading up to the new year, rather than focusing on only those new employees, I'm giving you all the new employees for both licensed and classified employees, also administrators, that were hired July 1 moving forward. So if there was a comparison, you would see that it looks like we are hiring more people, but that's because we're looking at the full school year. So moving forward, you may see something that looks a little bit more like this so that you can compare apples to apples. As you can see, a total of 229 new hires in total, 95 of them certified, 8 district and school admin, so that is a combination of school-based admin and district admin, and then 126 classified. All right, of the certified, this is the breakdown: 76 teachers, 7 special education teachers, 11 special service providers, and 1 preschool special ed teacher. So of these groups, they are all licensed employees. Of admin, again, 2 district administrators, 6 school administrators, total of 8. And with classified, there are more categories here for you to consider. The paraprofessional category includes special education paras, instructional paras, and healthcare paras. One of the reasons that it looks like the special ed paraprofessional number is so much higher is because we have a lot more special education paraprofessionals across our district than we do instructional or healthcare. And quite frankly, more than we do many other classified positions, because we do value making sure that we have the staff that is needed to really support our students who are on special education plans and make sure that they have the services and support they need at all times. Again, you will see the numbers are high there with office business admin support. That is office and district level admin type support. School support is another high area. Transportation with 10 drivers and or staff members that are working in the transportation department, and 25 student workers. That's a lot of student workers, but we're so excited that we've been able to successfully hire so many student workers. A couple years back when I was first in HR, I used to hear some of our maintenance team concerned about not being able to have enough students hired during the summer or in the positions that we offer as student sweepers during the year. So this is actually a great success. They do not typically, unless they are student sweepers, stay on staff during the school year. They just work with us over the summer. So if the grounds are looking great, blame it on the students. Give them credit in a positive way. If the grounds are not looking great, then talk to admin. Brett Ridgway. He doesn't really do groundwork. All right, average new hire pay across the board. This is our licensed staff at $54,804 with a district-wide average across the board of $61,102 of that category, in that category. And then with the classified staff, average classified staff members who's newly hired is making $21.11 per hour, whereas those who, including the newly hired and those who are already employed, are at an average of $23.25 an hour. And then as you can see, newly hired administrators, we talked about those being some school-based, some district-based, average $108,322 with the average salary across the board for all district administrators, both school-based and district-based, at $110,172.
Question on that?
Sure.
2 questions. One is, one of our biggest challenges, of course, is comparative pay to other peer and competitive districts. So I'm curious, and I know we're making some strides to bridge that gap. I'm curious how we compare in your latest analysis. And the second thing is, just in the spirit of really sizing this up correctly, the annual numbers that are cited are those for teacher contract years or those for 2,080-hour work years,
They are for the contract year.
which is how many hours?
So 182 days for average employees, 7.5 hours a day. So if you multiply that,
We have to ask Mr. Ridgway that very quickly,
sure,
wouldn't we?
he can probably pull up a calendar or a calculator.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. As far as how we are in comparison, I think it's fair to say we still trend below the national or the average in the region, but I do think we've tried to make some gains in these areas, and I think that people appreciate it. And therefore, when we move into the next section of this presentation, where we're talking about the reasons that most people are leaving, if they do choose to leave, are really not primarily based on pay, which is good. All right, so for certified resignation, we'll start at the top, and I'm not going to walk you through every single one of these, but if you look, retirement is the primary reason why we have lost certified employees, so at 22.2%, that being the highest area. That is something that I think is a celebration, that people are sticking with us long term, and the main reason they are leaving is to retire. We, of course, don't want to see people retire, but many of them have put so many years into servicing our district and making a difference for our students, so we do appreciate that. Accepted position in another district is another high category. If you keep moving around this circle, you'll see that some of the areas that tend to be a focus, including what we were just talking about, Mr. Schwartz and I, with better pay benefits, that's actually one of the lower reasons for turnover at only 4.1%, indicating this is their primary reason for leaving the school district. Just to clarify, when you look at this graph, it's important to know that this is the primary reason listed. So each person that filled out a separation form indicated more than one reason. We base this data on their primary reason for not returning next school year. Also, another celebration is only 1.3% of them listed job dissatisfaction as a reason for their departure. This data, again, goes from July 1 to end of June. Here is a comparison of those who were in a certified role that left in 2024 in the light blue color versus 2025 in the dark blue color. As you can see, again, we had a higher percentage of employees leave for retirement this year than last. It's not a whole lot higher, but still it is higher. But also, you'll see that more of our staff members left to accept a position in a different district. And one thing it's safe to assume is some of them might be choosing to leave because maybe they're moving out of the area, a military move, something such as that, or maybe they are leaving because they can get paid elsewhere somewhere else. We do not know that for sure because, again, if you look at better pay benefits, it's like I showed before in the previous graph, 4.1% said that they left for better pay. All right, and on to classified. A total of 90 total classified resignations. Again, at the top, the greatest, the most significant reason that our classified employees chose to leave had to do with family, personal, or health reasons. Next being retirement. The reasons that were listed as the least significant included better pay and benefits, career advancement, continuing education, and accept a position in a different district. It's interesting, the comparison between licensed versus classified as far as how many chose to leave to accept a position in a different district. One thing that I will say I've noticed in the last few years in this position is when I call to make an offer to a classified employee or potential classified employee, it does feel like our pay seems something that is reasonable to people. They appreciate it being a competitive wage, so I am grateful for that. And again, a comparison from 2024 in light blue to 2025 in dark blue. Family personal reasons, again, is higher, as we saw in the graph before. One of the things I wanted to point out in these graphs is we did graph the student worker information, knowing that those students, they are only really typically employed during the summer unless they are working as a student sweeper. And even so, most of them would work for 1 to 2 years and then not continue in the position. All right, any questions on part 1?
With the exception of the student workers, are all these FTEs that you're referring to?
Yes. We focus the data on full-time FTE.
Okay. And the other question is, if we add 72 to 90, it's 162, right?
190, yes, that is correct.
I did that without Mr. Ridgway, by the way.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So, what % of our total employee population does that represent, and how does that compare to previous years?
So that is a good question. Mr. Ridgway, would you be willing to look at that? I think we had just over 800.
Which is about 20% then, right?
Yep.
How does
Previous years. So interesting that you ask that, because priority 3, valuing our people, the first action plan is about what we'll see in this last slide, retaining our highly effective teachers, and also at a rate of 85% or higher, and then not losing more than 10% of our total classified staff, which this year it was 20%. I would be more than happy to get back to you on a comparison to last year. I don't want to guess, so I can get back to the board with that information.
But maybe more important than the physical number is there rationale behind the number. For example, if this is down versus the last 3 years on average, it's likely good news. The question is why. And the converse is also interesting for us to understand so that we can act accordingly as needed, right?
I agree. That's all important information, and I'm happy to do a little bit more research so I can provide that to the board.
Okay. And beyond an exercise for the board, is it valuable for the team?
I think it's valuable to the team. I mean, retention and recruitment of highly effective people across the board, whether it be teachers, support staff, administrators, is one of the primary goals that we have in the district and specifically in HR. So I would say that it does matter a lot.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Norris.
Can you go to the next slide for me? Oh, keep going. Oh, yeah. Right there. So, next slide. Next slide. That one right there. So, job dissatisfaction, it went from 2% in 2024 to 6.74. That's an increase of 4.74. I did that without Ron.
I could have even done that one, Chris.
Do we have any kind of, is there any granularity in that question that we can dive down a little deeper and find out why that increased, specifically as it relates to job dissatisfaction?
So one of the things that we offer when an employee leaves is an exit interview. And when I am able to sit down with an employee or employee that is recently left, depending upon when the appointment is, I think often they will really dive into the feedback that they'd like to share, that they're comfortable with sharing. And I do think it's usually each situation is different, and there are opportunities for us to grow. One of the things that's important for you to know is when I get the information, I try to do something proactive with the information and not just write it down and walk away like I didn't hear it. So I would say each employee that leaves the district for any reason other than retirement, including we care about what they have to say if they retire, but I do feel like not just me, but the team wants the feedback and wants to do something productive so that we can learn and do better for our people. So that's where I get the information, is through the exit interview. Again, everyone is offered an exit interview, and not everybody takes us up on it. Not everybody meets with me, but when I do, I try to give them the time to really understand their reasoning for leaving.
What are some examples of dissatisfaction?
I think sometimes they feel like the direct supervisor or person who evaluates them is a little tough to work with. You know, everyone is maybe, it's interesting because within a department or school, some people may really do well under certain styles of supervision or leadership, and other people may struggle. So it's an opportunity for us to reflect on what can we as an administrative team do to best support our people, take care of our people. Now, sometimes there is a reason why the administrator and or supervisor had to do something, say something, handle a situation a certain way, and those situations matter as well, because we would want to make sure that we're doing what's right by our people and, most importantly, our students. And there are times when there might be a better fit elsewhere or with someone new. So it's a good opportunity. The exit surveys or the exit interviews, I think, is where I get the deepest data perspective from people who are willing to just open up. And some of you probably hear that sometimes, I would guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two questions.
Sure.
On part one real quick. Let's see, that one got answered, that one got answered. Retirement. When we see retirement, and that's a big factor right there, can we, in a future presentation, see what our years of service are? My concern or my question is, and that it's just part of the ebbs and flows, I get that, but if a lot of staff are retiring and we have a lot of newer staff members that are getting to know who D38 is, and what that onboarding and mentorship looks like and what education looks like from an experienced teacher that's been here since before Bear Creek was even built versus a teacher that went to school in Bear Creek, for example. So if in future presentation, would that be possible to look at where we are in terms of years? And then my style actually is, to your point, I like graphs. I'm a visual learner, and so when you are putting together that information at Mr. Schwartz, can we get it in graph form that shows year to year, and also shows, again, and a graph form of how we compare to others in pay?
Yes. And the answer to your previous question is also yes. I think if that's the correct answer. One thing I'd like to point out that we do in our district that, honestly, I can't say if other districts around us do this, but when we do have opportunities to fill in the gap because maybe a teacher needs to be out for a long period of time, maybe a teacher wasn't the best fit and they need to leave mid-year, one of the first things I do is go to retired people and try to bring them back in. And that's such a wonderful way to bring them in, to mentor, to bring them in for a positive perspective in the building. And I can think of multiple times where that has happened in the last few years, where those people have brought exactly what is needed to that building to help move things in a really positive direction. So I do think there is something to be said for our retired employees, and I think we do our best to take good care of them, not just when they're here, but each time they come back to serve our kids and work in our community. So I'm not taking notes, so hopefully I'll make sure. Thank you, Amber. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's valuable because to both of your points, it's valuable for the team to know. It's valuable for us as board members to know. It's also valuable for our community to know.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thanks.
everyone's questions. Thank you. All right, and then with something a little different here. So we had the intention of sharing both classified data that we collect through Frontline and certified data that we collect through Randa. To be clear, there are some licensed positions that are evaluated in Frontline. They are not positions that can be licensed in Randa. But as we continued, Mari, I don't know if you guys know Mari Campbell, wonderful human being, really helpful, helps me a lot with evaluations and the tracking of evaluations. We really tried to understand the data last year compared to this year. Previous to last year, we didn't use Randa. We evaluated all of our employees in Frontline. And what we found is we are trying to really get to the point where the data is clean enough and makes sense enough that we can truly do a fair comparison from one year to the next. So at this point, we feel like moving forward, this data will be able to be compared from one year to another, and it will be a more of an apples to apples comparison. what you can see if you look at this data is starting at the top, principals and assistant principals, there's a total of 21 who were evaluated using Branda. Out of those 21, 2 were considered highly effective, 18 were considered effective, and 1 partially effective. Teachers, 334 were evaluated. Out of those 334, 103 were listed as highly effective, 224 as effective, and 7 as partially effective. Of the last group, special service providers, there were 45 employees who were evaluated using Randa. 30 were listed as highly effective and 15 as effective. If you remember, priority 3, action step 1 was all about retaining our highly effective employees at a rate of at least 85% or higher. Based on the fact that we were able to retain 135, well, out of the 135 highly effective employees, we retained all but 10 of them. And so that is 93% of them that we did retain. That's specifically the highly effective teachers, which is what action step 1 is focused on. Now, as we discussed earlier, step one is also focused on classified employees and not losing more than 10% of them. So we do have a celebration, but we have an opportunity to keep working when it comes to classified people and retaining them from year to year. And then just to be clear, according to the Randa data, 34% of our staff were rated as highly effective, 64% as effective.
Just a little bit of context. Randa is the software that we use that's provided by the state to us free of charge. And it is a state-level rubric that most districts across Colorado use to evaluate the performance of licensed staff.
Thank you, Amber.
So I have a question around the rubric. How does it function? In other words, do human beings fill out a multiple choice questionnaire, or do the employees fill out something that somehow is results oriented, or is there a mix?
So 70 for
get
teachers,
to the result?
primarily observation.
Of whom?
Of the teacher.
By whom?
By the supervisor.
Okay, so the supervisor
Primarily.
goes back and
And there's a process for the employee to provide a self-evaluation, to provide input on how they feel they are doing according to the criteria. But primarily 70% is the principal or the assistant principal assigned to evaluate the educator in the classroom, observing and giving feedback throughout the school year.
Is it purely classroom or also in a team environment?
Also in a team environment. Good question.
There's specific indicators that would only be able to be observed in an environment outside of the classroom, like how well they lead in the building, how well they get engaged in the community. So
yeah, and it might be something the board would be interested in, taking a look at those performance criteria in the future. We can certainly share that with you so that you can see specifically what all those criteria are. The other 30% is based on student learning results, which can be somewhat complicated, but that is part of our requirement in Colorado, is that 30% of the educator's evaluation is based on the data that indicates whether or not students are learning and growing.
thank you.
Is this the first year we're doing this?
No, we did it last year as well.
We used this software last year, but we've had the process in place for many years.
Is there a way, to Ms. Upchurch's point, to watch the progress over the years? Is it conclusive enough from the 23-24 year to the 24-25 year, and so on and so forth?
I think we could pull the data from last year and compare it to this year and present that to the board. I think years previous to last year, it would be little different comparison.
Because the software was different.
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked the question. So here, I guess I want to ask the board if you think this would be valuable. if retention and employee satisfaction and productivity is important. Secondly is we're not educators. We're community volunteers. Would you provide us what your conclusions are
Yes, we would.
based on what you've learned as well as your knowledge as educators?
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
I appreciate your questions and your interest.
I think it would be a great exercise for the board to do during a work session or perhaps a December retreat to go walk through that as board members and see what that looks like.
That means we're partially effective. You and I.
Okay, any other thoughts or questions? Comments, thoughts? No, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, D3 is our first reading of our B policies. These are the policies that B2, Career and Innovation Center update. Sorry, Ms. McAllister. Ms. McAllister, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. Melissa Andrews, how are you today?
Great, thank you so much.
Good.
So before I present this, it's kind of striking to me that today is June 16th, because if we could rewind the clock, we'd realize that it was on June 20th of 2024 where we had our Innovate 38 Community Forum, where this whole thing kind of started. So
Time flies.
Exactly. Time did fly. It really did. So thank you for having us. We're excited to present some updates for you tonight. Again, I will talk a little bit about programming, particularly about sponsorship, and then I'll pass it over to Melissa for some building updates. So I'm jumping right into partnership today. You'll see we continue to kind of move along this pipeline, and you can kind of see it better reflected in this graph here as far as where we started back in January and how we're moving towards that implementation phase in June. So we do have some exciting updates to share with you tonight to the tune of the partnerships that we have and some resources that we've secured. So we're excited to talk a little bit more about those with you. What I have to share with you tonight really is in terms of securing grants. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is kind of in the middle of that graph. What you will learn is that we were awarded and selected for the Innovations in CTE grant. So we will be procuring our welding equipment with that grant to the tune of about $240,000. So very excited about that. Of course, as grants go, I think Mr. Ridgway had alluded to this earlier. There are strings attached, of course, and so we're addressing the strings as we speak, but we're very, very excited about that grant. The next thing I want to say is not necessarily a grant, but in a partnership with Adams 14. It is a school district in Commerce City. We had learned just through some collaboration that I have that they were looking to offload some of their equipment. So you'll see there we have secured 2 mills, 2 lathes, 2 drill presses, 2 bandsaws, 2 grinders, 1 metal grinder, 1 arbor press, 1 brake press, and 1 belt sander. And if we were to buy these, it would be $188,000. So we're very excited about that as well. You can see we needed to hire West Side Crane to bring flatbeds up there, some power. We are also paying West Side Crane to store them. All in, the cost of using them is minimal compared to the value that we'll get from these. So very thankful Nathan Edwards went up there and he facilitated all of this for us. So excited about both of those. We have money coming in for the grant. We have this. This also will help us with our welding programming into the coming school year. So excited to announce both of those. We will have more announcements for you at the very next board meeting. Things are definitely in progress with some community partners, some business partners that I do believe our next update will kind of lock some of those in. So we're just continuing to manage those. Next, I'll just talk about a little bit about the pipeline that we're building. So as you know, I was just talking about welding equipment. We also will be having engineering classes next year in addition to our home build. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing anything with computer science and healthcare. We still know that those are going to be valuable pathways into the future. So the pipeline, Ms. Wetstein kind of talked a little bit about this camp that was offered to our middle school students, and it was a raving success. And I just want to say that this is part of that pipeline. What we know is that we have great programming that goes into our through our elementary schools with some of our technology teachers, and then we pick it up again in high school. So this was really serving to kind of build that bridge between what students have done in elementary school and what they're getting ready for in high school. So 27 students attended. We had 3 volunteer mentors coming in. They were learning Python in a variety of ways, and one of them is through this microbit controller, which as I turn it on looks just like a heart, but actually this can be programmed in so many different ways. And so the students were using this. Some of them were using it this way to play Battleship with each other. Others were playing songs with it, playing music. It can be a radio transmitter, and it can also be a scrolling screen. So when I talked to the teacher who had launched this, he was sharing all of the different kind of renditions by which they were using these. They also got to take these home. These were supported through that IEEE partnership that we have, and students took them home, and they're continuing to experiment with them. This teacher who offered this camp is planning to continue to engage with middle schoolers next year, possibly for an afternoon camp throughout the year. So robotics, coding, all of that. So pipeline is being built also as we speak. And so that's it for my programming. I'm going to pass it over to Melissa, unless you have programming or sponsorship questions at this point.
Just exciting.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting.
It is, and I'll say it, it's not on the screen up in front of us, but we have heard back about the enterprise zone. They continue to give us updates, and they've shared with us recently that it's a great application, and they don't see any problems with it. So we will know that in July. All right.
So congratulations on the progress.
Thank you very much.
One other question on the partnership piece. Is there any change on that since the last time we had an update?
So going back to that slide, that kind of lower green, that real green color is representing June. So you can kind of see in all of the pathways. Introduction is a little bit stayed the same, so is engagement, but implementation has really expanded. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Any lessons you're learning as you go through this? We talked about this being an 18-month.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and to your point, it definitely is. These conversations are ongoing, building trust. I do think that as we are starting to secure some resources, we might see this implementation accelerate even further because people are kind of starting to see the vitality of what we're doing, right? The validity of what we're doing. So I'm hoping that that's the case. But it does give us a fun story to tell. When we announced our CHIPS challenge being selected for that just last month, we started to get more engagement with this. So I think that it's going to be kind of a snowball effect. I'm anticipating that.
A little bit of media attention too, which will help us in this regard.
Yeah. The more our story gets out there, the better.
Maybe one thought as this matures a bit, if we can, is Ms. Matizik still here? If we can publish some wins.
Yeah.
Wins for those partners, then their peers and competitors will start coming to the table as well.
Yes, we are working on that.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I need to put your slide for you. You don't want to talk about that.
Ms. Andrews.
All right. So construction is moving right along, and in the beginning it seemed like it was moving a little bit slow, but the reason is because all of the things happening were under the concrete and above the ceiling. But now we're starting to see huge changes on a weekly basis. And so since the last time we've had a conversation, there have been a few more inspections. All are passing well. And just so you guys are aware, we do have third-party inspectors. So as we make progress, we have people on our behalf looking at the work that's been done to verify it's done properly. The last one we had done was testing the hardness of the concrete as it dries to make sure that it's meeting specifications. And so we just keep getting those reports. And if they don't meet specifications, the contractors go back and work on it some more. So we did have our electrical and plumbing the last couple of weeks. We are due for a welding inspection coming up. We've completed all of the concrete trenching with the exception of the clinic or what's going to be transitions area. And they've done the pourbacks in there, so there's no open trenches in the building, which is nice. We are currently working on the ductwork and the HVAC, and so we're seeing huge things go up on the ceiling. It's pretty exciting. Acoustical panels are going in. We have a lot of metal framing, insulation, and drywall going up, and that's the big stuff that we can see. The sprinkler heads are being installed, and then coming up, we're going to be working on masonry, and that's primarily in one of our conference areas, and the fire alarm conduits going in. And so, well, I think this one, you can see in that top right, that's some of the conduit, or the ventilation system that's going in there, so you can see how big those pipes are. And then in here, you're starting to see some of that metal framing going in, and the far right-hand picture is the drywall that used to be where the elevator was. So lots of progress, and we'll get some more pictures for you the next round.
Is there opportunity, sure there is, but can we facilitate opportunity for board members that want to do a walkthrough and not, we don't want to interrupt all the work, so it would probably be conducive if we do 2x2s if anybody's interested, so that we're not just inundating the workers and saying, hey, I want to come by and say hi, or hey, I'm going to come by in this board room, but that we're...
Yeah, we can't do any stop-ins, but you absolutely can just connect with me. I will make the coordination, and there's a couple of good times, either when we're already walking for an OAC meeting, or after all of the trades have gone home and it's just a general contractor there that can take us on a tour without all the noise. So just give me a call at any time and we can get something scheduled.
Perfect. I'm sure there's lots of questions or thoughts. Anyone? No? Great. Getting exciting.
Great.
Good work.
Good work. Thank you so much.
Happy 1 year, everybody.
Okay. D3 is our first reading and review of our B policies. And as we all are aware, we have been working on these together as a team, as a board, going through this exercise of what does policy development look like. And this is the next part of that in our B policy categories. Ms. Wetstein, is there anything else we need to?
No, you summarized that very well, Ms. Upchurch. I'm trying to find it in board docs here. So this D3 are the policies that the board has discussed revisions on, and then we have a following item that will be a new policy introduction.
Any questions or comments on the first reading? I just want to first personally say thank you all for diving into this and doing this work. It's a bit inspiring to see how minds come together and work together and what that policy development looks like. It's been a pleasure working with my 4 fellow board members working through this. So thank you all very much for taking on your policies and putting them together for us to be in collaboration and consensus on what that looks like moving forward. And Mr. Norris, we will be discussing the board evaluation 1 at our work session. Our retreat coming up. So, nope, okay. Well, that's our first reading. Our second reading will be in August. And now we are moving on to D4, which is our first reading some new policies, which is the one we just referred to. And that is a policy we do not yet have in D38 that came about from this project and from this work. And that is the one on board compensation, of which we wrote the policy to say D38 board will not be compensated. So that's also a first reading. Any questions, comments on that one? Yay, okay. Moving right along, we have a first reading of some more J policies, and we would like to invite Mr. Frampton up if you have any questions or discussion. Mr. Frampton, is this the last of the J policies, or is there?
No, it's a song that never ends.
That list is long and distinguished.
The reason these four are in front of you this evening is we had the privilege of engaging in a civil rights monitoring audit. We were randomly selected for this audit. And as part of this audit, they identified that our non-discrimination statement needed to be updated in an array of different policies, and we have a deadline in order to do so. So the four in front of you this evening all have that updated non-discrimination language that was recommended to us by the Civil Rights Monitoring Team. And while we were at it for JFBA and JFBB, a couple years ago, you might remember we talked about having 2 rounds of open enrollment process. We had a round 1 and round 2. We're changing the language from round 1 to priority choice, and from round 2 to limited choice, because our families weren't as clear on the differences between those 2 rounds. And we believe that if we call round 1 priority choice and round 2 limited choice, that might help families understand the importance of getting their applications in early. And that summarizes the changes. Any questions?
Any questions or thoughts? This is a first reading, so if there's any questions anybody has, then reach back out before our second reading and vote in August. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along to our action items. E1 is to consider adoption of school district budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 and appropriation resolution, which we had heard from Mr. Ridgway at the beginning of the evening. Team. Yeah, go for it. I would entertain a motion.
Where's the motion?
Do you have any questions for Mr. Ridgway also that might have stirred up before our budget hearing? Gentlemen.
I'll be happy to propose a motion if we need to.
Sure. Yep.
I'd like to propose that the board accept the school year 25-26 budget as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Is there a discussion? Do we need to also adopt a resolution with this?
The resolution is in board docs there, and my opinion is that voting on that approves the resolution.
Okay, perfect.
I can state the
No, I think we're good, aren't we?
resolution number if need be to make sure we're in accordance with it.
I think it's good.
We're good.
Okay.
So, seeing no discussion, Ms. Wood.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, consider approve notice of intent to participate in the November 2025 election. And this is in accordance with state law. We are required to at least 100 days before the election to take a formal action to participate. And as we all know, there will be 2 board seats on the ballot for Director District 1 and Director District 3. So we have to vote to put those on the ballot. So that's what this is.
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to move to declare the board's intention to participate in the general election on November 4th, 2025, to appoint Vicki Wood as the district's designated election official for this election, and to direct Ms. Wood to notify the county clerk and recorder of the board's intentions to appear on the ballot.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? No? Seeing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And then moving on to E3, The next step and part of that is to approve a call for nominations, and that's where we vote to say, yep, folks can go out and start collecting signatures, and we need nominations for those seats. So that's what this is. Is there a motion on the floor?
Ms. Upchurch, I'll make a motion to approve the call for nominations for the November 4th, 2025 school director election and placement of a paid ad, seeking candidates as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Third.
You get to decide who seconded it. It was Mr. Brown or Dr. Schenk, I'm not sure who. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Dr. Shank.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. E4, Homeschool Enrichment Academy Facility Update and Possible Action. Mr. Ridgway and Board. And Ms. Andrews. Sorry.
More importantly, yes. So, Rhett Ridgway, Chief Business Officer. So this is follow-up / continuing conversation that really took an official direction back on April 22nd when you directed us to approve and acquire a modular facility for homeschool enrichment program. And so the next step that we had in that was on the consent agenda at the May regular meeting is where we had originally had put in a contract for your approval for that next step, which would be to actually acquire the facility, the what do you call them, decks? Yeah, the decks of the pod. And at that time, we actually took a step back due to some uncertainty we had with the vendor that we had selected at that point. And then we came into and had a conversation with you all last week at the work session. And so that's kind of the setup I wanted to do before I hand this over to Melissa to walk through what we're proposing now.
All right, so we did, just as a refresher, we reached out to more than 10 additional companies and had gotten some feedback. There was a used unit that we wanted to investigate, but ended up costing more than the new units. And so kept moving forward, and we were able to come up with one solid bid that provided everything that we needed from the international building codes and snow loads. As we were engaging with them, the original vendor came back and was able to rectify some of the deficiencies that they had to make things as we needed them to be. And so as we were doing that, we did some checks and balances to look at the equitable costs between the two bids. And so what we were able to come up with is there was one that is $1.2 million less than the other, and guaranteeing the same quality or similar enough that we're comfortable with. We did reference checks on both companies, and I did not get feedback on the more expensive company. The less expensive company, we've received 5 or 6 responses in detail saying that they've had very good experiences with them and that they have good results. The buildings in some cases were brand new, and in others 10 years old and still standing strong, and so we were very comfortable with that. So we are bringing to you a final recommendation to go with the lower bidder. Okay. So again, looking at the site layout, I know it's hard to read with this red on there, but this is the layout with the multi-purpose space being over the existing playground and the night classrooms running from east to west across the back of this, still staying within the lot, not moving into that Grace Best location. And then the layout of which this company, the lower bidder, has provided. And this was flipped from our last meeting. As you recall, we didn't have the hallway shown. And so we got them to redraw for us, and this is what they've got.
So both locations are connected?
Yes, as you see on the far left side of this, there is a hallway that runs between the long hallway of the classrooms up into the multi-purpose space. So as they move throughout the building, everybody would stay inside.
Which increases security.
Which increases the security. We do have a safety vestibule right up in the area where I'm not good with that, but Brett's great. And we do have both student restrooms as well as staff restrooms, so we can keep the students separated, and that way for another layer of safety there. Yeah, and so that was the other thing that was kind of a hang up with this company, is we were having two separate roof lines, as they were having a hard time trying to join the two buildings. We've gotten them to where they do now have the roof lines aligning, so it will look like it belongs together. And again, this one, they do have the three support beams in the middle of the multi-purpose space, and so that was a pretty significant cost increase with the other company. This company did not offer the clear span option.
Sorry. It's my phone.
Okay.
Just go through that.
Oh. All right, and so again, that wasn't just the cost of the building, but we do have additional work that needs to be done. We are required to do a site development plan because this will be permanent foundation on the site. And so that requires geotechnical, and we're gonna have those holes drilled on Friday so we see what the soils are and what that foundation needs to be built with. And so we have the first group is all of our architects and engineers that will be working on a lot of that site development plan, as well as the foundation for the structure itself. And then all of the other costs go into tying the building together with doing the excavation to get the foundation in, to pour concrete, and to get the buildings set. Once the buildings are set, they are going to tie all the utilities into it and make sure that there's construction fencing and safety. And you did ask if there's a possibility to pull some of this out and into our district staff, and there is some opportunity, not a huge amount, but like the safety, security, telecom, fire alarm, all of that we can pull back to our side. And so there are some opportunities, and we will take advantage of those where we can. So again, looking at the timeline, if we're able to execute a contract, we will be able to get the buildings in fabrication as soon as possible, and that puts us at a completed building about October 17th for completion and delivery here on October 31st, and then we will be doing all of the stuff with the building to get it set on the foundation and airtight flooring and that type of thing November 21st. By December 5th, we'll have the sprinklers and all of that kind of stuff set up. We'll do the flooring on December 12th, and then have kiddos in there hopefully into December.
So if we were, I remember we were talking about we were hoping to try to get kiddos moved over in October. So if we're waiting until December, does it make sense to just start the new semester in January?
It will be cleanest and easiest, I think, on the students and families. We can make it happen at any time after the building is ready. So that's, and so the October, I think, I don't know if you were at that meeting, but we found out that the timeline would have been the same. The company was not clear on what that looked like. They'd have had the buildings there. We would have still had to do all the tie-ins, the utilities, and that type of thing.
And the site development we would have to do regardless of the company?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have to do that and the permitting, and that is all time consuming. So that's the only thing that's an uncertainty, is how fast it can move through El Paso County.
So I, as one board member, appreciate that we're doing the site development investigation, because we often wonder, did the site development have any effects on Grace Best? And so when we talk about the foundation and the quality of Grace Best as it's deteriorated, questioning if that had anything to do with the foundation that it was laid on. So I do think that it's important that we're doing due diligence on this one. And maybe they did then too, I don't know. I didn't even live in the community back then, so. Okay, other comments and questions, team?
Is there a summary number for the capital structures, for the capital outlay for the structures themselves, including installation.
Do we have that in this one?
In the contract? Okay. You have in your executive content, the contract proposal from Palomar.
So it's just about 1.9.
Correct.
Okay. So this is about a $2.9 million project as we can see it, right?
Correct, and that's a change from when we had this approved back in April, and I take this the ownership of this, that I had underestimated the amount of additional work that was going to have to go beyond actually purchasing the facility, and so that's why in the original I had about $500,000 in my mind for that. So when we approved a $2.5 million project budget in April, it was the 1.9, just slightly under $2 million item for the buildings, and then I had about $500,000 in my mind for this other work, and then as we have gone through that, and we've discovered this other. This is much more in depth than I had anticipated, and so this is a difference that I own on that.
And it looks like, based on this, the flat work is part of the structure company's bid versus the general contractor bid. Is that right?
The flat work as far as,
Preparing the ground and laying
No.
cement. That's part of the 980.
it is. Mhm. Yeah, the buildings come up as units. They require us to have level ground and/or foundation or blocks that can handle the building itself. They're willing to put skirting on it, but we're asking not to have skirting and let that be the foundation because we want this to look like the building is permanent and belongs there, not that it's sitting up on blocks and it's a temporary solution.
So it must be buried in one of these line items then? Because typically cement is a large expense, yeah.
Yes.
And what's the foundation? Oh, masonry and foundation.
I see.
Masonry and foundation is in there right
It's
there, yeah.
on page 2 of the contract, or was that page 3? No, page 8 of the contract.
I was just looking on the right and at the larger items, figuring it was in there, and then was
Yeah.
wondering if maybe I'm just reading it incorrectly.
I can go get detailed information, but there should be the excavation and then the masonry would be,
There it is, masonry, foundation, water, well, no, that's waterproofing.
Page,
the waterproofing is
slide
an
10,
addition.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's waterproofing, that's not, you can't pour concrete for $16,000. If you can, I'd like to have them come to my house.
Right? And I'm looking up in there. Temporary fencing. I apologize, I don't have my glasses on.
It's okay, we can,
He assures me it's all in.
it has to be somewhere, yes?
It is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a summary of the more detailed proposal from Wells and West, and so we could send you that detailed list that would show that.
I got, it's gotta be in the contract. If you're pouring that much concrete, it's gotta be $100,000.
Anything else? Questions, comments, or thoughts? Mr. Brown, you look like you were about to ask something. No? Okay.
Proposed Wednesday, it's
Okay, team. I attended the work session via phone. So when I was listening in and then looking at all this data, but if there's any other questions or thoughts, or are we going to vote, or what are we doing? What would you like to do, board?
Definitely want to keep this on schedule so that we don't delay any further and drag it out for a few more weeks or months. I mean, of course, we definitely have concerns with how it's going to look and how it's going to fit in the area and all that, but we're kind of just trusting you got it. This is for you're doing the crane set option? Okay. I mean, as soon as you have stuff that you can share that show us what it's going to look like and how it's going to come together, I think a lot of us would like to see that.
Oh, right. So what we're going to do is Mobile Modular had the photos with the images we brought to you at the last meeting. Palomar doesn't do the exterior work. It will be done by our contractor here with the same type of veneer. And that gives us the opportunity to pick if we wanted to have a rock look or a brick look or just a siding look. And so we have lots of options. We would just bring out the information and let either the school or you guys choose how they want that to look.
And is that budgeted for already?
So it is not in the numbers here. It was another 160,000. I want to say 120,000, depending on what the siding looks like. Yeah, the basic siding is what you typically see on the modular. That will be on it. And then that gives us the opportunity, if we want to do it at the same time, we can. If we want to wait until we have additional money, we can do that at a later date. That's not a problem. That will not stop us from getting kiddos in the school.
Of course. That's right. Brett can print more money.
Perfect.
We also discussed some potential fundraising efforts in partnership with the homeschool enrichment community to explore what we might want to do with the exterior.
I have a question on the contractor. Maybe I'm getting into the weeds on here. When it says ship loose and it talks about the plastic for skirting or belly band, is that different than when we talked about the foundation piece of it, or is that part of?
It's within the foundation.
Okay. I mean, they have it down to toilet paper roll holders on here.
He's got a lot of experience, and so if we don't do the foundation correctly and we do not allow for airflow through there, we can end up with mold. And so he's very conscientious on making sure that we have that to where we're getting the flow underneath that building, so we don't end up with any issues like that.
Good.
Is it possible this isn't on cement except the borders?
That's exactly. The foundation is just the borders of it with supports throughout the middle as per the specifications that the modular company wants us to have. We have to have it open underneath because the plumbing is under there. We have to have access to be able to maintain that.
Okay. So that may answer that question about the flat work.
Mm-hmm.
It may be significantly less than what I was thinking.
Okay.
7.2 says owner shall be responsible for providing level site with adequate drainage for building placement unless otherwise specified in the project scope.
Yeah, it's not going to be a slab.
Right. Okay.
Does that crawl space have mitigation for cold weather, like freezing and bursting pipes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I believe that's that belly band and the things that they're talking about there.
And that's buried somewhere in here?
So he has it just general items. If we want him to line item it out in more detail, we can do that. But yes, there should be insulation and all of that underneath that building.
Okay. Good.
So board, our next steps is we do need to, if we are and or are not going to move forward with Palomar, we do need to vote. If we're not ready to vote, we can table it and do a special meeting considering timeline, or if we're ready to vote tonight, then I would accept a motion.
Ms. Upchurch, I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Palomar Modular Buildings in the total amount of $1,940,888 to construct, deliver, and install modular units for the Homeschool Enrichment Academy on D38 Administrative Complex site.
I'll second.
There has been a motion and there is a second. Is there discussion?
Should we make the incremental engineering cost part of our motion so it's comprehensive? If we're going to approve this, shouldn't we do it comprehensively?
What would that look like?
Is $1.9 million the structures and all the engineering work? I think it's closer to 2.9.
Yeah, it would be 1.9 million plus $980,000 for
Right.
general contracting services.
Do we need to, I'm sorry.
Please.
I think Mr. Roth's asking, do we need to vote on both of those items together? or just the capital expenditure portion?
You know, given that we won't be meeting again for a bit, you know, I think to Mr. Schwartz's point, it'd probably be good to make it a comprehensive, because a lot of work will be happening between now and August, when our next meeting would be. So I appreciate you thinking of that. Otherwise, I would say to your question, no, we wouldn't necessarily have to do it all together. But some of our meeting cadence, I think, would make it a better.
What's the total amount?
2.9.
2.9.
Including, does that include the frame set as well? Because that was an additional line item I saw.
What was the question?
That looked like the frame set was an additional line item, so we want to.
Yeah, that was at 61. On the contract, there was a second part of it. I don't see it, but yes, it's in addition to that.
So let's make sure we include all three.
66.
Plus the 160,000?
Oh, for the siding.
We'll have plenty of opportunities between now and then, I think.
Right.
That's after the construction's completed.
I'm personally concerned.
Add for cranes.
When spending $2.5 million was a stretch for me. And it's gone up since then. So I'm just registering my concern and will probably vote no. I don't want to vote no, but I'm concerned that this is a lot of money, and the one thing we don't have is a lot of money. I'm concerned about what this means for us to be able to buy a building should it come up for transitions. I don't want us to be incurring debt beyond what we can afford. I understand that we probably can afford the debt service, but I'm concerned. I'm not a little concerned, I'm a lot concerned that 2.5 seemed really high to me, and I voted for it anyway, and it's more than that, and I'm just worried that we're spending money. I'm not saying they're not deserving of this space. I want them to have this space. I'm not sure that we are being good stewards by spending this much money for such a small proportion of our students and for such a small proportion of the week. And I want us to have the money and just say yes and go do it, because time is of the essence.
So the question that I would ask is, what alternative choice do we even have?
You know,
And I think they've been pretty much exhausted. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm with you. I'm being nervous about it, but having gone through all the alternative options and knowing that Grace Best is getting worse and worse, it's not a healthy and safe place to be. I really, personally, I'm not aware of any other options that are going to cost any less. That's for sure.
so because I was aggravating about this over the weekend, I just looked at every single option for monument commercial property. And there's a 7,000 square foot building just south of the middle school. Look, I know nothing about school buildings and what needs to go into that, so take that as it may be. You know, was under $1 million.
Ms. Andrews, what's the square footage of this building?
20, no, go ahead.
Yeah, was it 28?
28 what?
28,000.
So that's a quarter of the size of this facility.
Right, okay. All right.
And I think we do have to be careful, just because we have a building doesn't make it viable for students. We end up having to do all the HVAC, and that is the expensive part. That's the majority of what we're paying for at the CIC building is the HVAC.
And that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, we're doing the CTE building, and we're spending a lot of money making it suitable for us for education. So even if we could pick up the building, We may still have to spend more than this 2.5 million just to make it suitable.
Look, I'm not saying I know anything about this.
No, I mean, it's fair to express your concern. I
So
think
was it 2,800 or 28,000?
1,000.
Yes, 1,000.
Okay.
Is it 28,000?
Yeah, each classroom's about 900 square feet. There's 9 of those, and then the 10th one is set up for a teacher's lounge and a classroom. Plus, then we have another building on top of that. That's another. Yeah.
That's pretty big.
I mean, the CTE
doesn't
building
seem
is 25,000.
Is there any other discussion? Anyone that has not spoke yet?
I just need the updated total so I can redo the motion.
Well, we'll have to, before you do that, what we'll do is we'll do a motion to amend the motion is how that'll work.
So since we're having this discussion, I mean, it seems to me there's a couple of things we could do here. One is we could vote and the majority could rule. Conversely, we could also take some time and unpack this a little further. And my question would be, what would the entire board need to see to have a higher level of comfort that we're making a quality decision with the limited dollars that we have for the members of our community and our student population that require it?
We could take the time to explore further, but we just have to know
You have to-
that we'll have to do a special meeting to vote to approve it then. Because
Right.
we don't want to push this out another month.
So, right.
We would want to make a decision before the week's over, I would argue.
So right now, there's a motion that's been made and seconded. So if there is a motion to table the vote, that would be a motion that would have to be made. Or there would be a motion, you could make a motion to amend, or you can keep the motion as is.
So maybe one more question. Melissa, are you planning on being with us on Wednesday?
I am out.
Not at this point, but we could revise our agenda if needed.
Well, my question is, if we spent a real intensive hour on this and really understood the alternatives and what it would be, would it enhance the balance of the board's comfort such that we were in a position to make a quality go, no-go decision? If so, that's worth an hour of our time on Wednesday, and then we call a special meeting for Thursday or Friday and vote.
I have a question. Am I the only one, if I'm the only one with any concerns, you can go ahead and vote. I'd just like to know if I'm alone in this.
So are you calling the question? Or are you, right now, we need to make sure that the motions right now is for the amount that was put forth. If somebody wants to amend it, then they can do that. But that's where we are right now.
I'm just saying that that's not, for the rest of you, that's not necessary. If you guys do not have concerns, for you to amend the motion, and you can vote. I mean, it's,
I'm comfortable.
I mean, I'm nervous, but I'm comfortable proceeding.
I think I am too, given the square footage and the HVAC and all that other stuff.
Okay.
Seems like the more we unwrap it, the more that this alternative is probably the most logical decision.
Okay.
And the gap to the next viable option is more than double the cost. So I understand and I appreciate the concern. Of course, we're responsible for being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. But the next viable option, like I said, it's going to be more than double. Fixing Grace Best is going to be
Right.
Not a viable
multiples.
Right.
Buying another building and then renovating it's going to be at least double. I don't think we could even get close to what we're accomplishing for this dollar amount any other way. Otherwise, I would all over exploring that further. I mean, I'm not in love with the idea of the portables, and I would love to get a better gym, but I just don't see anything else that we can do without going and looking for a bond.
I appreciate it.
I don't see this as one board member adding to the discussion. I don't see this as something that's just for a small segment of our population, because I think that the vision of this is that it adds value to the community as well.
Sure.
Because it would be used for the community in multi-purpose aspect as well. For the space, for what it is, I would, I'll defer to Mr. Ridgway and Ms. Andrews on, I had a question regarding when we looked at the space and the HVAC. I didn't see in any presentation that there was an alternative that would meet the needs of our community and our students. I'm all ears if we do have one. My question to you is, when we've been budgeting for this with contingencies, we just voted on a 2025, 2026 budget, and any dollars that are, when we are looking at our general fund, to your point, Dr. Schenk, we're not made of money, right? And we run a pretty thin and lean budget anyway. So dollars that are used for one area, say increasing teacher pay, means that those are dollars that don't go to capital needs, for example. So it is a priority of looking at what are our priorities, how do we balance it, how do we walk the tightrope to meet the needs of our students and our staff and keep our buildings safe and be good stewards with our taxpayer dollars. So it is definitely a balance, and I can appreciate that as one board member.
I guess my major concern is that I'm confused at this point, and it was a little bit of a hard push for me to say yes to 2.5, and yeah, but since there's not this level of confusion with anyone else, I think we should go ahead and vote. I think this is, just it's a lot of money, and I'm worried, and it's that's just where I'm at. I don't feel clear. And when I'm not clear and it's a lot of money, that's when you'll get a no from me. And I'm not saying I shouldn't be clear, but I'm not clear.
One thing, if I could clarify, the square footage is 13,000, just to say it, under 14,000 square feet.
13. Thank you.
Yeah.
13.
That helps me.
Right. That's why I figured to clarify that.
Yeah.
So it is much larger, and it is already done, like no remodeling. So the scenario that you're talking about, as we're learning with CIC, as we learned and when we looked at other buildings, because we did go through all these processes throughout the late winter and onto the early spring, looking at other facilities, and then having contractors come out and look with us and say, what would it take to refurbish this for educational standards? And it was usually $2 to $3 million of that type of work that would be necessary, because of all, especially like Melissa mentions, the ventilation for education is a really high bar. And so there's no residential, there's not even regular commercial ventilation. Usually that suffices. We have to go to a really much higher standard. And so that ends up being a lot of work that you really don't see, right? Because it's in the ceilings, it's in the floors, and et cetera. So I do think that we to Mr. Brown's point, we vetted several different scenarios, and this was by far the cost-effective scenario for it. To your point, I did budget $2.5 million for it. So yes, for me, I have to figure out $500,000, and I will figure that out.
Okay. I'm having the square footage helps. And I'm clearer.
Okay. So just in case, back to Mr. Norris's point, if I can continue, adding the 980 to the other proposal would make a total of 2,921,160.
That checks.
Okay. Good job.
And that makes me clearer as well.
I ran out of fingers and toes. So
Did you? Okay.
I had to move the technology. So
Okay.
that being said, I'd like to move to amend the motion to approve the contract with Palomar Modular Buildings in the total amount of $2,921,160,000 to construct, deliver, and install modular units for the Homeschool Enrichment Academy on D38 Administrative Complex site.
Do we need to clarify this is two different contracts?
Yeah,
Contracts
and
and
two different
contractors?
entities. I wonder if maybe we can we rescind that and clarify, because we do have two different entities for significant amounts of money, yes?
So here's how we do it.
Okay.
This is
How do-
that
how do
Robert guy, that Robert's Rules guy, so
Yeah, I met
don't,
him.
don't second it. Just let it fail, and then make the motion again. So, what is your motion
Let me get to the right page. I would like to.
or amendment?
I would like to unsecond that motion, if you don't mind, Mr. Norris, and then re-first it. May I do that?
It's all yours.
Okay. I would like to recommend a motion to the Board of Lewis Palmer School District 38 to approve the contract with Palomar Modular Buildings and, what's the name of the engineering?
Wells and West,
And Wells and West Engineering Company.
general contractor.
General
General
contractor,
contractor.
excuse me, for the approximate amount of $2.9 million.
You want to get the exam, here, just,
$2.921 million and change for the construction of modular facilities on the District 38 property for the homeschool enrichment programs primarily, and secondarily for other student and community-based activities.
did you get that, Ms. Wood?
I will listen to the recording and get it all.
Is there a second to the amendment to the motion?
I'll second that.
There is a first and a second to amend the motion as presented. Is there discussion on the amendment? Go ahead. Please, please, share.
I want to be really clear that I'm clearer and can go forward on this. And I believe that our Homeschool Enrichment Academy has immense value to our community. I homeschooled my son through middle school because he just couldn't be in a place where that he was, where he was just didn't fit. And I don't know what I would have done without my homeschool community at that point, because I had no clue what I was doing, even with an education degree, because it's much more complicated than that. And so I'm clear, and I feel ready to vote on this.
So any other comments before we vote on the amendment? No. Okay, Ms. Wood, can you take the roll for the amendment to the motion?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. And by the way, I was feeling the same way. So now,
And thank you.
now we have passed the amendment, so now we need to vote on the actual full motion
Motion as amended.
as amended.
Do I get to say it again?
No,
No, it's on the table already.
it's on the table.
Just calling the vote.
So now we're calling the vote again.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, and please keep us updated, and please keep negotiating that
And here's
down.
the other. Because I don't understand this.
Thank you for going through that exercise. And I think we all feel the same way with the importance of taking care of our kids and our community, and also making sure that we are being good stewards. And I appreciate you vocalizing that and sharing that. And Mr. Schwartz.
One other thing I think is really valuable, we chose to nip it in the bud instead of kicking it down the road, kicking the can down the road. Right? And that's what professionals do. You address it head on. So thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it too. It was rather scary for me to say what I had to say. It's like, why aren't you clear? Because I'm not clear.
That's okay. I'm a firm believer, if you don't understand it, don't vote yes on it. Okay, moving on to E5, consider and approve G policy revisions. This is our second reading from the policy revisions that we had learned about from Ms. Welch in May. Ms. Welch, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Does the board have any questions about the policies?
Sir, you look like you want to make a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right.
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to make a motion to approve revisions to policies GG staff leave, GCU membership in professional organizations, and GDD support staff vacations and holidays as presented and recommended by district administration.
Seconded.
There has been a motion on the table and a second. Is there any discussion on policy revisions to GB, GG, GCU, and GDD? Seeing none, Ms. Wood.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Dr. Shank?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Wilt. E6, school district calendar revisions. Ms. Wetstein, would you lead us through this a bit, please?
I will. We are proposing some minor revisions to our upcoming 2025-26 and 26-27 school year calendars. First, on August 13th, if you're referring to the upcoming school year calendar, we are specifying that August 13th will be the first day of school for all of our students with the exception of 8th grade, as the middle school is proposing an innovative approach to onboarding 7th graders on the first day of school so that they can experience middle school on their own prior to the 8th graders joining them. And then the other change is on April 3rd. This was the day this year that we converted from a non-student contact day at the middle school to a student contact day to mitigate snow days. And that day worked very well to have students in the school, and we are proposing making that a student contact day moving forward. That will help add some hours to our school year calendar at the middle school level moving forward. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have two questions. Question number one is more of a suggestion that I thought was a great idea that was brought forward by a parent, a middle school parent, that we, and this is partially aimed, I guess, at Ms. Matizek too, that we do as our snow days evolve throughout the school year, that we do a measurement, whether it's a bar or something that shows where we are in our snow days and such.
Yes, I heard that recommendation as well, and we thought it was a great idea so that parents can be tracking throughout the school year, knowing what our balance of hours left for the year are. So we have big plans to update our website with that information.
Thank you. And question number two, when you drafted this calendar, given that it's summertime, was there input given by the principal and educators and hopefully some parents from the middle school on this revision?
This recommendation came from the middle school specifically, and it's been in the works for several months.
Okay, that was my questions. Any other questions for Ms. Wetstein? Okay.
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to make a motion to approve revisions to the 2025-2026 and preliminary 2026-2027 school district calendars as presented and recommended by district administration.
Seconded.
Motion has been on the table and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I see the shaking of heads. Ms. Wood.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Dr. Shank.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. Okay. And then E7, consider and approve our 2025-2026 Board of Education meeting dates.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the schedule of Board of Education meeting dates for 2025-2026 school year as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion? I know we discussed this during our last work session. Partially, I question, do I vote on this or not? Because come that November, after that, the majority of these bulk meetings I won't participate in, but I guess I will speak for whoever is going to take my place.
Absolutely. You are.
Any other discussion? And we're all good with these dates, knowing that sometimes there's an ad hoc that happens here or there. Okay? Ms. Wood?
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Dr. Shank.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. And then our consent agenda, E8 for approval of our consent agenda as presented.
Ms. Upchurch, I'd like to make a motion to approve, oops, hold on, I'm on the wrong page, so I can't do it. Thank you. To approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I just had a question, and I don't know who to ask this to. On the workers' compensation insurance and the liability insurance, are these standard? I know we vote on these each year, but with these costs, is this pretty normal, or are we good? Sorry, Mr. Ridgway, thank you so much, sir.
It's okay, thank you. The workman's comp is actually flat from this current year.
Okay.
177. The property and liability insurance is up about 100,000, and that's what I had put in the budget. If you remember that as being part of my early conversations about the likely increase on that. So that came in, I think maybe a little higher than 100, but pretty much right there.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right, seeing none, Ms. Wood.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Dr. Shank.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. And before we go to G1 adjournment, I just want to remind everybody about Wednesday's board retreat. It will be a long day, but there will be a lot of good information to cover. And Mr. Schwartz, you had a good point that we can meet tomorrow and discuss if there's an opportunity to put a little bit more of information as we go through on timeline, just to keep it so it's packaged so that we can also follow along with the progress on the HSCA building.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. With that, we are adjourned at 8:42.
It's at the Woodmore Clubhouse, right?
Yes. I'll see everybody Wednesday.
We're playing squash,
Squash.
pickleball.
I don't know that we have it on the agenda. There's so much to do. Oh, Patty, we got Stein. Yeah.
Come on, don't be a hater.
I have.